A common complaint at car shows is seeing the same cars over and over. Hi, it's Bud Wilkinson, and that wasn't the case at the first New England Concours d'Elegance. Not only were there models that I've never seen before, there were brands that I'd never heard of. How car savvy are you? Ever heard of a British-made Elvis? Have you ever seen a BMW 503 from the 1950s? Are you aware of Connecticut's role in the early days of automobiles? The recent New England Concours d'Elegance attracted both owners and spectators to the Farmington Polo Club, where rare, pristine, and prestigious models dominated the showground. Alan McCord and his wife Priscilla of Lakeville, Connecticut, brought a British-made 1962 Jaguar Mark II luxury sports sedan to show off.
I've always liked the idea of having sort of a sleeper car. It's not a bling kind of a car. It's not fancy dancy. It's not like a Corvette or a Ferrari or anything like that, or one of the other Jaguars. It's a four-door sedan, regular kind of person's car. It's the same engine as the XKE, so it's considered a hot engine for its day. It got a nickname as a gangster car because the gangsters drove them because they could beat the police, and the police started buying these, and that's sort of the story of the car.
So the police drove Jags in England, huh?
Right, to catch the guys that own these.
Also from England, a maroon 1967 Sunbeam Tiger Mark I Roadster belonging to new owner Steve Honeycomb of Glastonbury, Connecticut.
I've had it for 5 days.
5 days?
Yes, it just got shipped out from California and didn't know if I'd even make it here today.
What possessed you to buy a Tiger?
I sold a McLaren and I've wanted a Sunbeam Tiger since I was 16 years old. Couldn't afford it back then, and then been looking for the past 3 years and found this one that was totally restored.
The Tiger stood out among some of the other British models on display.
Some people call it the poor man's Cobra, but it's still a pretty amazing car. The sound of it's amazing, and it's a really smooth car to drive.
Sal Rosito of Prospect, Connecticut, brought his flashy blue 1968 Pontiac Royal Bobcat GTO.
I brought this because it hasn't been to a lot of other shows yet, and I wanted to go to a concours show with it. And my 64 GTO had won at the Greenwich Concours and at the POCI 3 years ago, and I did 395 points out of 400 with that car. And so I wanted to bring this car because I always wanted a 68 again, because I had one when I was 19 years old. And I sold it because I got married and had kids. So that's what happens. One fascinating part of the New England Concours d'Elegance was an indoor display of cars that were made in Connecticut in the early 1900s. There were Connecticut brands such as Locomobile and Kelsey, Corbin, and Pope Hartford.
It's a little known fact, but the car industry was actually in the state of Connecticut at the turn of the last century. There were over 160 patents applied for at the beginning of the 1900s for cars, and about 25 of those companies actually made at least one car. But the cars that really survived are examples right here, Pope being one of them.
With so many exquisite cars to drool over, picking a favorite was likely difficult for many. For the first event, it's well run. Beautiful cars here. I got a lot of competition, no matter what, and it's a great show going on. No two ways about it.
I think pretty much every one of these cars is quite special. Where a lot of times you go to the car shows and it's just a ton of cars, and this is, I think, more serious. In Farmington, Connecticut, for Ride Connecticut, I'm Bud Wilkinson, and if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel.